First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Happy Friday, folks. Good afternoon, good evening to you. We are yet again watching for the sea breeze to work its way inland, perhaps bringing the chance for some more thunderstorm activity later on this evening. But for the time being, things have remained relatively quiet. Now, a little bit of a different story further down to our south. Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach, really down along that I-4 corridor. There has been several rounds early this morning and then yet again here earlier this afternoon of some thunderstorms down there across central Florida. Whereas here for us on the First Coast, you look just off to our north from Atlanta the whole way down to Jacksonville. You can see those tannish kind of orange colors. That's that drier air aloft in the atmosphere. That is getting swept in from the north. So that's kind of doing two things. One, slightly drier air across some of our more inland southeast Georgia counties. So there's not going to be nearly as much moisture. Still humid, of course, but not as much at the surface. But I think even more importantly, that drier air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere really inhibits some of that thunderstorm activity. Now, I will say, if the thunderstorms are able to strengthen at the surface and you get a strong enough updraft to overcome that almost capping inhibition from the drier air aloft, you can get some very strong storms, and then you can get some pretty strong downbursts and downdrafts of upwards of 40 to 50 miles per hour in some of the isolated storms. But generally speaking, that dry air, that's going to help us out with regards to any of our Friday evening plans. Lesser rain and thunderstorm chances up across southeast Georgia. I mentioned slightly lower moisture content at the surface. You got a dew point of 68 in Waycross. I would imagine it's right around 69 to 70 for the Folkston area there in Charlton County. Whereas areas closer to the coast and also really everywhere across northeast Florida, still dew points in the low to mid 70s. So incredibly humid air still out there here for this Friday afternoon and evening. Temperature wise, still low to mid 90s in some locations, whereas some of those coastal spots, the sea breeze has already worked its way inland and has now pushed west of the intercoastal and is almost draped right along that I-95 corridor. So St. Simon's Island, you're at 86, Mayport's at 89, whereas you just go a couple miles inland, Jacksonville's still at 93 degrees. So you factor in the humidity and those dew points with the temperatures as we always do. Still feels like 101 degrees in Jacksonville right now. It's not the worst heat index or real field temperature that we've seen so far this week, but still a very steamy 4 o'clock hour for your Friday afternoon here. But let's take a little bit of a closer look at where the sea breeze is at. You can pretty much see it, as I mentioned, draped right along I-95 and the St. Johns River. So I would say 95 north of Jax, south of Jax, sea breeze is right along the river. But for the time being, still not really seeing a whole lot of towering cumulus clouds or cumulonimbus clouds trying to form along that sea breeze. That upper level flow is kind of out of the northwest. You can see that with some of those higher level clouds streaming in from northwest to southeast. Meanwhile, at the surface, there's just kind of powdery looking clouds are starting to form as the sea breeze moves inland, but still not a whole lot to ride home about here just yet. Nonetheless, we're still going to watch for some thunderstorm activity over about the next, I would say, 3 to 4 hours at most. But if you live out at the beaches, either Fernandina Beach, Ponte Vedra, Atlantic Beach even, your Friday night's looking pretty good. No thunderstorm activity along that Atlantic sea breeze here just yet. Further south, down towards Alachua County and southern Putnam County, few just isolated showers trying to develop, but even those look pretty measly here. So it's been a fairly quiet Friday evening so far. We're still going to watch for some thunderstorms, primarily from the St. Johns River west and from I-10 south. So if you live either in the southern part of Baker County or Columbia County, Union, Bradford, down towards Gainesville, really I would say the western half of Clay and the western half of Putnam, that's really the zone we're going to be watching for some more thunderstorm development here later on this evening. Some models are pretty robust in showing how widespread of storms we could potentially see. Here is one of those. So this is the 5 o'clock hour showing a lot of thunderstorm development, a lot of heavy rainfall, frequent lightning, some gusty winds. Based off of how things are looking right now, perhaps a little bit more isolated than what this model is showing, but it does at least show you the area that we're going to be watching. That drier air, again, that's coming down out of the north, is going to just limit the overall thunderstorm chance and coverage across much of southeast Georgia. So if you have plans in Folkston or Waycross or Blackshear up there in Pierce County tonight, you should be okay. You might have some clouds overhead, but really best rain chances are going to be south of I-10 and west of the St. Johns River there in Clay, Putnam, Union, Bradford counties, and then out towards the I-75 corridor here through the rest of this evening. Doesn't mean we couldn't get a few isolated showers or quick downpours to kind of build back eastward. The upper level flow is pretty weak for the most part. So if there's any kind of outflow boundaries that get pushed back towards Jacksonville, still might be able to see just a weakening shower along that outflow boundary. Very similar to what we saw last night with some of the storms that came in later on in the evening out of southeast Georgia. But overall, it's looking like many of us will have a very nice Friday night to get out there and enjoy if you do have any dinner plans or Friday night plans out there tonight. Overnight temperatures actually going to be a little bit cooler, especially for some of our more inland locations, thanks to some of that drier air I've talked about. Upper 60s even and lower 70s for most folks who live from Highway 17 west. Now, if you still live either up and down I-95 and east of there, out towards the intercoastal and the beaches, it's going to still be just as warm and muggy as it has been here for about the last 2 weeks. Overnight temperatures only down into the mid-70s. But tomorrow then, we start it right back up. First half of the day, looking very, very nice. Yes, it'll be hot and humid, but sunny skies. Well, watch for some isolated storms after about 1 to 2 p.m. tomorrow. I really think our storm window for your Saturday is going to be between about 1 to 7 o'clock. But most of those chances are going to be west of the beaches. So we're only putting about a 30% chance for rain at the beach, and I think even that is pretty generous. It's probably going to be a little bit closer, about a 20% chance of rain there. Whether you're in Jax Beach, Atlantic, Ponte Vedra, Fernandina Beach, up towards Brunswick even, should be looking pretty good. Temperature-wise, upper 80s thanks to a little bit more of an onshore easterly flow, but nonetheless, although temperatures might be in the upper 80s and close to 90, still going to feel like 100 degrees out there tomorrow afternoon. So stay hydrated, pack the sunscreen, pack the umbrella for some shade out there as well. But you might also need the umbrella if you live across some of the inland locations tomorrow afternoon and evening. This is really where we're thinking for your best chance to see some rain, as I said, between about 1 and 7 tomorrow afternoon and evening. So pretty much think Highway 17 west. Coastal areas, could you see an isolated shower or two real quick earlier in the afternoon and period, kind of between 1 and 3? Sure. So yeah, I mean, if you live in World Golf Village or if you live in East Arlington or Mayport, could you see a quick shower? Of course you could, but best chances are really going to be west of Jacksonville and really even west of the Beltway tomorrow, and then also south of I-10. Again, that dry air is still generally going to be in place across southeastern Georgia. It's not a lot, but it will inhibit some of the thunderstorm development, which is going to push the best chance for rain kind of in that southwestern quadrant of the First Coast down across Alachua counties, Union and Bradford, and areas that we have spoken about. A lot of this, though, is because we're kind of changing which sea breeze is going to dominate here over the next couple of days. Over the last few, we've had a light westerly wind throughout the day that's kind of kept that sea breeze pinned along the Atlantic coast and the beaches. And then the Gulf Coast sea breeze was allowed to roll on in, and we saw those sea breeze collisions right along I-95 and much closer to the metro. In contrast to that, today it's kind of the transitioning period. Tomorrow, though, we're really going to notice it. Much more of a light southeasterly breeze for the first half of the day. And then by the afternoon and evening, that sea breeze is going to be allowed to work inland much further. So that's why we're expecting the strongest sea breeze collisions and thunderstorm development to be across many of our more inland locations and west of Jacksonville. And Sunday is going to be no different. There's at 11:30 a very light easterly wind. And then once you get into the afternoon, that sea breeze kicks on in. It's just going to surge westward. You can see there, sustained winds 10 to 15, gusts upwards of 15 to 20. But that's still really going to pin that sea breeze collision out towards I-75, Columbia County, and Lake City. So Sunday rain chances, I'm very confident in the thinking that the coastal area is going to be completely dry. So if you're planning on taking the boat out to maybe the sandbar or somewhere, or just riding it up and down the intercoastal on Sunday, you're looking very, very good. I would put rain chances on Sunday for the beaches and coastal areas at about 10 to 15%. For downtown Jacksonville, the south side, San Marco, probably about a 25 to 30% chance of rain, because that's where that sea breeze is going to start to work in. We'll start to see a little bit of some cloud development along it, but really it's going to be west of Highway 301 and really between Highway 301 and I-75 for the best chance for rain there on Sunday. So if you live further west, out towards Gainesville or Lake City, a much better chance for some rain, but it looks like the coastal areas and many of us who live up and down I-95 and around the Jacksonville metro will have finally a drier weekend here for the most part, especially there for your Sunday. So here's another way to look at it. We looked at just the winds. Let's show what the models are trying to depict. So there's 2 to 3 o'clock on Saturday, as I had mentioned. Still going to be possible around Jacksonville, but most of the storm's going to build further westward. And the models are trying to depict that here, also staying a little bit further south of the state line. So many of our friends who live up there in southeast Georgia, y'all are looking pretty good. Some isolated stuff, but best and strongest thunderstorms are going to be south of the Florida-Georgia state line, and really even south of I-10 there for Saturday afternoon. So now let's speed it up to Sunday. You notice that sea breeze kicks in a little bit earlier in the day, actually right around about noon on Sunday, and it's already past not only I-95, but the St. Johns River in downtown Jax by 2 o'clock on Sunday. So you'll notice trying to depict some showers, trying to develop, but really it's going to be areas much further westward that we'll watch for maybe some more sea breeze collisions out towards I-75 and the Gulf Coast there by Sunday evening. So overall, a drier, less stormy weekend here across the First Coast. That trend will continue into Monday. Mostly sunny skies, about a 30% chance for some more of those inland storms. Coastal areas, yes, we'll have 1 or 2 isolated showers or storms out there, but generally speaking, our rain chances are going to continue to go down each and every day here incrementally over about the next 4 to 5. Part of that is due to the easterly onshore breeze, but also just the high pressure we kind of have in place somewhat over us, but also just off to our northeast. That's not only pulling in the easterly breeze, but it's providing a lot of sinking air. And that really just, inhibits the thunderstorms. Think about it. A storm typically has a lot of warm, moist air at the surface that's trying to rise. If you have high pressure, that's trying to, that's sinking air that's pushing down. So you almost have two forces fighting against one another. That thunderstorm trying to go up with the air, and the high pressure with the sinking air trying to come down with the force of gravity. So that's really going to kind of cap and limit some of the thunderstorm, not only intensity, but overall coverage as well there through next week. And then you combine that with the sea breeze kicking in much further west, really not expecting all that much thunderstorm activity through most of next week. So we're going to get a little bit of a break from just, the daily storm chances. One other factor that I haven't talked about a lot for next week, but I've talked about, for this weekend, the drier air in southeast Georgia for tonight and tomorrow. There's going to be quite a bit more of it, the Saharan air layer getting mixed in here from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And you'll notice that those yellows and tannish colors, that's much drier air aloft in the atmosphere. So that's also going to kind of limit our chances for storms. You'll notice, though, by Thursday and especially into Friday, we're going to have a little bit more of an influx of some, mid to higher level moisture. So the storm chances will come back up at least a little bit there by the end of next week. But generally speaking, looks like I would say most of Monday and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all looking very good with regards to any outdoor plans you have. Doesn't look like they're going to be too heavily impacted from, any chance of thunderstorm development or anything like that. On the tropical front here, before, I continue, we've had now 5 named storms in the eastern Pacific. It was Category 4 storm, Category 4 Hurricane Eric that made landfall in Mexico, I believe, yesterday morning. That has now completely, withered and withered away to nothing, and got it torn apart by the higher terrain in western Mexico, but also some drier air getting mixed in as well. But you can still kind of just see the overall spin and flow and moisture left from that over much of not only Mexico, but into the Bay of Campeche there in the southwestern Gulf, west of the Yucatan even. So this is still going to be an area that we're going to watch for development over the next couple of weeks. And we've talked about this really before June even started, that Central American gyre that sets, as the name describes, right over Central America. Just kind of a very broad area of low pressure. We'll watch for kind of just small waves of energy within that whole circulation to try and spin up. But so far this season, we have been lucky. All of those have propagated off to the west thanks to the easterly trade winds down there near the equatorial region. So the eastern Pacific has gotten all of those storms in development. On the eastern side of Central America, so in the western Caribbean, temperatures, actually like sea surface temperatures themselves, especially near the equatorial areas, have been slightly cooler. The Gulf is incredibly warm, so if a storm did get up into the Gulf, we would expect rapid intensification. But down in the Caribbean, down towards even the northern extent of South America, those waters a little bit cooler. We've also had a decent amount of Saharan dust and that drier air pulled in from the west coast of Africa. Yet again, thanks to the easterly trade winds pulling that towards the west. So you kind of combine the slightly cooler waters, the drier air, and the dust from the Saharan plumes coming off of Western Africa, and then just a little bit of some extra wind shear down across the Caribbean as well. Has all of those three things combined have inhibited our chances for tropical development. And the good news, it's been on the screen here now for a couple of minutes, but no tropical formation is expected in the Atlantic for the next 7 days. And I would say even for the next 7 to 10 days. So really looks like the first month of hurricane season, the whole month of June, we're looking good. The long-range models are also not showing much of anything for the time being. So hopefully that trend will continue through all of hurricane season. That might be wishful thinking. I'm not sure that it will, but at least for the next 7 to 10 days, nothing to be concerned about there. They are still trying to show some waves of energy trying to move out of that Central American gyre that spins around down there where many of the clouds are in Central America, but they're yet again pushing them into the eastern Pacific, west of Costa Rica and Mexico even. So we'll continue to watch that, but at least on the tropical front, nothing to be concerned about for the time being. So one last look here at the 7-day for you. Tomorrow going to be probably the best chance to see some thunderstorms yet over, I would say, the next 5 to 6 days. Time frame wise, really between about 1 and 7 o'clock for all of us across the First Coast. If you live around Jacksonville, I would say between about 1 and 4. After 4 o'clock, most of the thunderstorm chances going to be, pushed much further westward. And as I had mentioned, we're really thinking the vast majority of the scattered thunderstorm activity and the chance for strongest thunderstorms will be west of Highway 17 tomorrow. So west of the Beltway, west of the St. Johns River for your Saturday. Doesn't mean we won't see an isolated storm if you live out at the beaches or, on the south side or somewhere. If you're planning on going shopping down at the, St. John's Town Center, could you see a storm? Yes, you certainly could, but best chances will be further westward. Those chances will continue even further west then on Sunday, only about a 30% coverage area for most of us. Drying skies will continue then into the start of early next week. Temperature-wise, you're going to notice a slight drop for Sunday and Monday. Low 90s there for Jacksonville. For the beaches, actually the mid to upper 80s, 87, 88 degrees, thanks to that easterly breeze. The Atlantic sea breeze is going to work in right around lunchtime each day. So that's going to limit just how warm temperatures will actually get. But don't let that fool you. The humidity is still going to be incredibly high. So although it might be 87, 88 degrees, it's still going to feel like 100, 102, 103. So how it's actually going to feel outside, it's pretty much going to be the same here for the next week. But if you're reading the actual air temperature on the thermometer, you might notice just a couple degrees there cooler than we've seen at least over the past couple of days. And then by Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, temperatures for Jacksonville back into the mid-90s. Some longer range stuff is showing some of our more inland locations, especially I would say even west of Highway 17. So we're talking Baker, Union, Bradford counties, western Clay. High temperatures by the middle of next week could be pushing into the upper 90s. A few locations could even flirt with some, record highs for specific days, those daily record highs. So that's something we will have to watch for if we do get close to that heat advisory or excessive heat warning threshold. So although the rain chances will go down, that means you're really not going to get that thunderstorm to give you a cool down, in the middle of the afternoon. So the heat's just going to continue to build throughout the day. So we will have to watch for, any potential heat advisories or heat warnings or anything like that as we do get into next week. Doesn't look like they would necessarily be for Jacksonville, but more so likely for areas west of the Beltway and for our inland locations there by again, the middle of next week. So that's all I've got for you folks here today. Enjoy your Friday night. As always, we're going to keep very close and watchful eyes on the radar to see if any thunderstorms do develop along that sea breeze. I'm going to look one last time here quick. Looks like far southwestern Putnam County is still the only place to see a little bit of a shower there. So otherwise, we are continuing to stay dry, but nonetheless, that sea breeze could always fire up some stuff. So we'll watch for that here tonight, but enjoy the rest of your Friday night. Have a dry, safe, and wonderful weekend here across the First Coast as well. I'm meteorologist Ross Mumal. Take care, folks.